tonight are volunteering their time and their talents from their homes to bring some entertainment into your homes. Many of them just first met each other about 15 minutes ago when they first logged into this Zoom meeting. We want to thank them all very much for joining us. We would also like to thank our friend, Your Friendly Neighborhood Shakespeare, for hosting this on his pages and for joining us tonight. Check out his website at shakespeareapproves.com and his Patreon at patreon.com/Shakespeare. We are looking forward to his upcoming production this Wednesday with the Social Distancing Players, The Hamlet Christmas Special. We will provide links to all of his content in the comments. We'll also be working to re-upload this video at a future date with captions in the very near future, as well as attempting to implement a live captioning system for future readings. So we are excited about that. As always, we want to acknowledge and thank all of the medical professionals and essential workers who have been working for the past 19 weeks and more to keep us all as healthy and safe as possible. We also want to acknowledge those demonstrating and protesting for bravely pushing forward the simple fact that Black Lives Matter. If you're interested in more information about our totally volunteer organization, check out our website, zenithplayers.com. Feel very free to check out our very attractive donations page. 100% of all those donations go towards production costs, which these days consists of the various subscriptions that allow for these readings to happen. If you'd like to join us for future projects, just send us an email, casting@zenithplayers.com. We will get you on board. Join us this Saturday as we return to Shakespeare with Richard II, and next Monday, we will present a reading of Little Women. For now, please relax and enjoy Jane Eyre, featuring Isabella Pepe as a young Jane, David Nardlock as Brocklehurst, Lorraine Ruth Rosenberg as Mrs. Fairfax, Grace Aline as Adele, Dan Kostelik as Rochester, Shakira Searle as Bertha, Gwen Wark as Grace Poole, Megan Coates as Blanche, Maisha Eleni as Lady Ingram, Steve Anderson as the Doctor, Terry Esso as Mason, Andrew Gellos as the Minister, and Tara Jane Clifford as Jane Eyre.
My name is Jane Eyre. I was born in 1820, a time of harsh changes in England. Money and position were all that mattered. Charity was a cold and disagreeable word, well, too often merely a mask to cover bigotry and meanness. As a child, I had no one, only an aunt, and I cannot remember even once did she speak a single word of kindness to me. When I was 10, she sent me away to school, to a place called the Wood.
What do you want?
I'm the new girl, sir, Jane Eyre.
You are aware of my identity, Eyre?
They told me you are Mr. Brocklehurst, sir.
That's correct. I am the supervisor of this institution.
Institution, sir?
Did I give you leave to question me?
Oh no, sir. I simply didn't mean to.
Perhaps the word institution annoys you.
Excuse me, sir. I thought this was a school.
Lowood is a refuge, Eyre. A refuge for paupers and orphans, who but for these portals are without homes. Here we give everything. In return, we demand nothing short of absolute obedience and humility.
I've tried to be a good girl, sir.
You've tried only to torment your poor aunt. From what she told me and from what she readily observed, you're a wicked and worthless child.
But that isn't so.
In all the earth, there is no sight so terrible as a wicked child. But I promise, all wickedness will be driven from you here. Eyre?
Yes, sir.
Get to your knees. We shall pray together for the salvation of your soul.
That was my introduction to Lowood. It was like a prison, dark and cold, but never so dark nor as cold as Mr. Brocklehurst. His hand reached everywhere, through those somber walls, and in the guise of Christian charity tormented body and soul alike. 2 weeks after, he found cause to assemble all of the children and ordered me to stand before them on a stool.
Pupils, observe this child. Be on your guard against her. Shun her example and avoid her company. And you, the teachers, watch her well. Punish her body to save the soul, for already the evil one has found in her willing servant. She will remain on this stool for 12 hours. Return to your class.
If we who were children at Lowood did not flourish, at least we survived. True, we had nothing to cling to save each other, for the very anguish that was Lowood bound us together still more closely. Life was bearable. I know, because I was there for 10 years. Shortly after my 20th birthday, Mr. Brocklehurst sent for me.
This is a solemn moment, Eyre. Little did I imagine that the unregenerate child I received into this institution would, in 10 short years, become one of its teachers.
A teacher, sir?
The trustees have seen fit to bestow that honor upon you.
Accept the offer, sir.
Why not, pray?
I do not wish to stay at Lowood.
This is unheard of. The ingratitude.
I have had 10 years of harshness and drudgery, sir. For that, I have no gratitude.
Willful and stiff-necked as ever. I see we have been sadly deceived in you. And where do you intend to go?
Out into the world, sir. I have never seen it.
You know how the world treats young papas, friendless and without connections.
I intend to find a position as a governess. I have advertised it in the newspaper.
Doubtless you have been overwhelmed with demands for your services. Oh, this is ridiculous. You have no talents. Your appearance is insignificant. I warn you, Eyre, if you persist in this folly, this haven will never again be open to you.
I am leaving Lowood, sir. My advertisement brought me a solitary answer, a letter signed by a Mrs. Fairfax that bore the crest of Thornfield Hall. I was a whole day in reaching the estate. At the nearest village, a coachman met me, and for 2 hours we rode through the desolate moorlands. And then, in the shadows of evening, it loomed before me, huge beyond anything I'd envisioned. Its great tower stretched into the darkness, and its massive stone walls butted out into the misty gloom, like the ramparts of a fortress. I had arrived at Thornfield Hall.
You are Mrs. Eyre, my dear?
Yes, madame.
I'm Mrs. Fairfax. There's a nice cozy fire burning inside. Come and warm yourself, child.
Thank you.
I'm glad you've come, Mrs. Eyre. Living here with no company but the servants is none too cheery, I tell you. Only the postman and the butcher to have a word with since this harsh weather has set in.
Shall I have the pleasure of seeing Miss Fairfax tonight?
Miss Fairfax?
Yes.
Oh, you mean Miss Adele?
Is it not your daughter to whom I shall be the governess?
Oh, gracious! Adele is French.
Oh?
You will see her in the morning. She's Mr. Edward's ward, his niece.
Mr. Edward?
Mr. Edward Rochester, the owner of Thornfield. I'm only the housekeeper.
Well, will he wish to see me this evening?
Oh, he's not here. He very seldom at Thornfield. And then he visits are always sudden and unexpected and brief.
It's such a beautiful home, Mrs. Fairfax. Why, it's hard to understand why Mr. Rochester would choose to remain away.
It is strange, but then, Miss Eyre, Mr. Rochester is a strange man in many ways. Now let me show you to your room.
Thank you. I spent all the next day with Adele, a beautiful and charming child. Like myself, she too was an orphan, and she won me over so quickly. That night, as I was making her ready for bed, she showed me one of her dolls.
This is Mimi, mademoiselle.
Oh, and such a beautiful She has, Adele.
Mama had a dress like that.
Did she?
This is a dancing dress, mademoiselle.
Oh?
Mama was a beautiful dancer. I also can dance. Do you wish me to dance for you?
Now, Adele, you mean this very minute?
Now you speak like Monsieur Rochester. For him, it is never the right moment.
Oh, does that make you sad, Adele?
Sometimes, mademoiselle, I love dancing.
I should like it too.
A great many gentlemen and ladies came to see Mama dance.
And where was that?
In Paris.
Uh-huh.
But when Mama had to go to heaven, then Monsieur Rochester came and brought me here.
Oh, wait.
Mademoiselle,
Yes?
do you like Monsieur Rochester?
I have not met him yet.
That big, huge chair downstairs?
Yes?
And that is his chair. He sits in it and stares into the fire and frowns. Oh, sometimes he brings me beautiful presents. But when he is angry, that's terrible. But do not be concerned, mademoiselle. Tonight in my prayers, I shall pray to God to make him be polite to you, so you will stay with me forever.
Oh, thank you, Adele. Thank you, dear.
Sorry, everybody, for the technical difficulties. We've just had a minor power outage, and our two of our performers are out of power currently, so they will be back shortly. Thank you for waiting. We will resume momentarily.
I have not met him yet.
That big, huge chair downstairs?
Yes?
That is his chair. He sits in it and stares into the fire and frowns.
Oh, but I'm sure he's very kind to you.
Oh, sometimes he brings me beautiful presents. But when he is angry, that's terrible.
Oh.
But do not be concerned, mademoiselle. Tonight, in my prayers, I shall pray to God to make him be polite to you, so you will stay with me forever.
Oh, thank you, Adele. Thank you, dear. Later that week, quite early in the evening, I went for a walk alone. It was cold and huge clouds of mist clung to the ground. It was like walking through a dream. With the road ahead inviting and invisible, there must have been a turn in the road, for I saw nothing and heard nothing until it was upon me. And then out of nowhere, there was a fearful clatter of hooves and men frantically shouting, and then both horse and rider crashed to the ground.
What the devil do you mean by that?
I'm so sorry, sir. I must have frightened your horse. Can I do anything?
Apologies won't mend my ankle. Stand out of the way.
But you're hurt.
I told you to stand aside.
But I can't until I see if you're fit to ride.
Where are you from?
From Mr. Rochester's house just below.
Do you know Mr. Rochester?
No, sir. I've never met him.
You're not a servant at the hall.
I'm the new governess.
The new governess?
Yes.
Well, if you're satisfied now that I have no bones broken, hand me my whip and get on out of my way.
Here you are, sir.
Oh, thank you. Now, if you'll kindly stand clear for a moment.
Yes, sir.
Jane! Jane! Jane!
Yes, Mrs. Fairfax.
Quickly, dear. He's been asking to see the new governess.
Who?
Mr. Rochester, of course. Rode in on us without warning in such a vile humour.
Where is he?
Inside before the fire, in his chair.
Thank you.
Well, Miss Eyre, have you no tongue?
I was waiting, sir, until I was spoken to.
Come here. Next time, when you see a man on a horse, don't run out into the middle of the road until he has passed.
I assure you, sir, it was not deliberate.
Sit down, Miss Eyre. Where are you from?
Lowood Institution, sir.
What's that?
Charity school. I was there for 10 years.
10 years. You must be tenacious of life. No wonder you have rather the look of another world about you. When you came on me in the mist, I found myself thinking of fairy tales. I'd half a mind to demand whether you'd bewitched my horse. Indeed, I'm not sure yet. Who are your parents?
I have none, sir.
Your home?
I have no home, sir.
Who recommended you to come here?
Well, Mrs. Fairfax answered my advertisement.
Huh. And you rushed here just in time to throw me off my horse. Do you play the piano?
A little.
Of course. That is the established answer. Go into the drawing room. If you please, go on. Take a candle, leave the door open, and play a tune.
What do you wish me to play?
Anything. Anything you wish. Enough. You play a little, I see, like any other English girl. Perhaps rather better than some, but not well. Good night, Miss Eyre.
Good night, sir. What sort of man was this master of Thornfield, so proud and so cynical, so unmannered? Instinctively, I felt that his harsh mood had its source in some cruel cross of fate. I was soon to learn that this indeed was true. After he said good night, I went to my room. I had scarcely fallen to sleep when I heard it. Like a voice in a nightmare. Wild, insane laughter, a woman's laughter that seemed to come from somewhere in the tower of Thornfield Hall. I opened my door, and at the end of the long hall in front of the stone steps leading to the tower, I saw Mrs. Fairfax. She was talking to someone.
But I tell you, you must be more careful. I've told you time and time again. It can be heard all over the house. I know. I see. Good night. Oh! Jane, did I disturb you, dear?
There's nothing wrong.
Wrong? Oh, dear, no. I was just talking to Grace Paul. She's a person we have to do the sewing.
Oh.
She does excellent work. But she's a little peculiar.
Oh, I see.
Well, how did you get on with Mr. Rochester, dear?
Tell me, is he always so changeful and abrupt?
Well, he has his moods, but then allowances should be made.
Why for him more than anyone else?
Partly because that's his nature, and partly because he has painful thoughts.
Mrs. Fairfax, I don't mean to be curious, but...
Family troubles, Jane. I think that's why he so seldom comes to Thornfield. It has been unpleasant associations for him. Good night, dear.
Good night.
Sit down, Miss Eyre. Tell me, you've been here now, how long is it?
8 days, sir.
8 days, yes. You puzzle me a great deal, Miss Eyre. From the way you stare at me, it's apparent I also am something of a puzzle to you. Examine me, Miss Eyre. Do you find me handsome?
No, sir.
Indeed.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm too blunt.
No, don't turn away. What does my face tell you? Am I a fool?
No, sir.
But is it the face of a kindly man?
Hardly that, sir.
No, I'm not a kindly man, though I did once have a sort of tenderness of heart. You doubt that?
Please, Mr. Rochester.
I have been knocked about by fortune, Miss Eyre. She has kneaded me with her knuckles till now. I flatter myself I am as hard and tough as an india rubber ball, with perhaps one small sensitive point in the middle of the lump. Does that leave hope for me?
Hope of what, sir?
Of my transformation from rubber back to flesh. You're silent, Miss Eyre. Keep your silence, then, and listen. What I want you to know is this. I do not wish to treat you as an inferior, but I've been battled through a varied experience with many men of many nations. I've roamed over half the globe. Your whole life, one set of people in one house. Don't you agree? And that gives me the right to be a little masterful.
You pay me £30 a year for receiving your orders. Do as you please, sir.
Yeah, £30. I'd quite forgotten that. Well, on that mercenary ground, won't you agree to let me bully you a little?
No, sir. Only on the ground that you inquired of my feelings as your equal.
Good. And you'll not think me insolent?
I should never mistake informality for insolence, sir.
Now where are you going?
Oh, it's time for Adele's lesson.
Oh, you're afraid of me. You want to escape me. You look at me and you hesitate to smile, even to speak. Admit it! You're afraid.
I am bewildered, sir. I'm certainly not afraid.
Mademoiselle, it's time for my lesson.
You see, I am not a liar, sir. I'm here, Adele.
Look at me, mademoiselle. You too, monsieur. See? It is the ballet dress you bought me.
Yeah. Is it?
Do I not look beautiful, monsieur? See?
Go upstairs.
But, monsieur...
I said go upstairs.
Come, Adele, come with me, dear.
Miss Eyre, I'm not finished talking with you.
Go to the nursery.
Yes, mademoiselle.
I'll come up in just a moment.
Yes.
Why are you looking at me like that, Miss Eyre?
I don't care what your past misfortunes were. You have no right to revenge yourself upon that child.
You're quite right, of course. I was only thinking of myself, my own private memories and feelings. Miss Eyre, I am a battleground where nature and circumstances tear at each other's throat. Nature intends me to be a good man. Circumstance decrees otherwise. You may leave now.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you'll be happy here at Thornfield.
I hope so, sir. I think so.
I'm glad.
3 nights later, I was again awakened by that awful laughter and a noise in the hall, like padding of running feet. I threw a robe over me. I lit a candle. I opened my door. I could see no one in the hall, but faintly, I heard a sort of crackling noise that seemed to come from his room, Mr. Rochester's. As I drew near his door, I saw it was partly open, just a crack, but through it came strange light, and then suddenly I could see it, smoke and fire. Mr. Rochester! Mr. Rochester!
It's out, Miss Eyre. The fire's out. Please,
Yes, sir.
open the window.
Yes, sir.
Look, the fire seems to have been only at my bed, the bed curtains and the sheets.
I'll get Mrs. Fairfax.
What the devil do you want to call her for? Let her sleep.
Someone started that fire, sir. I heard footsteps.
Stay here.
Why? Where are you going?
I won't be long. Stay here and be as quiet as you can.
He took a candle and walked quickly down the hall. The window of his room looked out upon the front tower, and through the vents in the window staircase, I could see now and then a flicker of the candle as it mounted higher and higher. There was something in the tower that had to do with the fire. The light from the candle seemed to cling to the top of the tower, and then, I don't know how long later, it glimmered its way down again. There were footsteps in the hall, and Mr. Rochester returned to his room. He closed the door and looked at me.
You came out of your room. You saw the fire and awakened me. Had you seen anything else?
No.
Did you hear anything?
Yes, a kind of laugh.
A kind of laugh. You've heard it before?
Yes, once. There's a strange woman living here. Grace Poole?
Grace Poole, yes. Yes, Grace Poole. Well, I can see now what must be done. Meanwhile, say nothing about this to anyone and be sure...
Adele!
Adele? You need not be alarmed about Adele. I looked in the nursery just now. Adele is all right.
Oh, thank heaven.
She's asleep. Next to her head on that pillow, her dancing slippers.
Oh,
Trying to console herself from my unkindness to her. The child has dancing in her blood and coquetry in the very marrow of her bones. She's shown you her doll, Miss Eyre.
a dancing doll with a dress like her mother's.
Her mother was a dancer in the ballet of the Paris Opera. Adele is the image of her.
But she's dead. Adele's mother is dead?
That is what we tell her. The truth is not quite so touching.
Oh, she has so little to love. I shall try to make it up for her.
Are you always drawn to the loveless and unfriended?
When it's deserved, sir.
Would you say that my life deserves saving?
I should be distressed if harm came to you, sir.
You should be distressed. What a puny sort of sentiment is that? You saved my life tonight, Miss Eyre. I knew you'd do me good in some way, at some time.
If I did, I'm very glad.
Good night, Jane.
Good night, sir. There was no sleep for me the balance of that night. The insane laughter, the fire, the story of poor little Adele, each was a fragment of tormenting and frightening puzzle. But most bewildering of all was the master of Thornfield Hall, this brooding, melancholy man, bitter and unpredictable as the winds that raced across the neighboring moors, and like the winds, searching and longing endlessly. I was up early the next morning, but not early enough. Mr. Rochester was gone. At breakfast, Mrs. Fairfax told me where.
He said something about Millcote. Perhaps he is bound there. Perhaps not.
Millcote?
Lady Ingram's estate, the other end of the county. She has a daughter, Blanche Ingram, and Mr. Rochester's our old friend.
Oh.
Jane, you heard what happened last night?
Yes, I was awake.
It's just terrible. We may all have been burned in our beds.
Did Mr. Rochester tell you how the fire started?
He said he was reading in bed and fell asleep. The wind blew the candle into the bed curtains.
Oh, I see. If you'll excuse me, Mrs. Fairfax, I'll go to Adele. But Adele was still sleeping. As I left her room, my eyes turned toward the tower staircase. Almost against my will, I walked to the ancient stone steps and started to climb. Halfway up, a great door barred the way, but it was open and I slipped past. At the top of the stairs was another door, but before I reached it, there came a sudden screaming and snarling, half human and half animal, and a thudding sound as if a beast were tearing at the bar of its cage. I wheeled on the stairs and started to descend, but the door behind me swung open and a voice rooted me to where I stood.
What are you doing here?
Who are you?
They told you who I am, Grace Poole. Never come up here, never.
But why? What is there? What are you hiding?
No one is allowed up here. Do you understand? No one. Now go down. Go down.
And so, to me, the mystery of the tower continued unsolved. Edward Rochester remained away, and the winter weeks dragged by. I found a measure of contentment in Adele's apparent fondness of me. And then early in the spring, he returned. But he did not come alone. He descended suddenly upon us with a dozen guests, among them Lady Ingram and her daughter, Blanche.
Jane! Jane! I've been home for hours. Not a word out of you. Why?
You've been with your guests. I have no wish to disturb you.
What have you been doing while I've been away?
Teaching Adele.
Yes, and getting a good deal paler than you were. What's the matter?
Nothing.
You're depressed. What about?
No, I'm not depressed, sir.
So much depressed that a few words more and there'll be tears in your eyes. They're there already, shining and swimming. Jane? Jane, you must tell me, what is it?
Mr. Rochester?
Now what the devil?
There's a gentleman to see you, sir.
Oh, well, who is he?
Mr. Mason, sir. Mr. Mason of Spanish Town, Jamaica.
Mason? Spanish Town. Take him to my study, Mrs. Fairfax.
Yes, sir.
Jane? Jane, I wish I were on a quiet island with only you, and trouble and danger and hideous recollection far away.
Can I help you, sir?
If help is needed, I'll seek it at your hands. I promise you that. Jane?
Yes?
If all the people gathered in the other room came and spat on me, what would you do?
I'd turn them away if I could.
Or if I were to go with them and they turned away and left me alone, what then? Would you go with them?
No. I'd stay with you, sir.
To comfort me?
As well as I could.
Thank you, Jane.
I was to learn a little more of Mr. Mason later that night. It was long past midnight. The whole house was sleeping when it happened again. That awful screaming in the tower. Aroused and frightened, the guests flocked to Mr. Rochester, but he had a convenient explanation ready for them. It was one of the servants, he said, a servant having a bad dream.
Well, that's all it was, a bad dream. Now, since these halls are inclined to draft, I suggest you all return to your rooms. Lady Ingram, you set the good example.
I'm quite disappointed in you, Edward. I was so looking forward to seeing you shoot a robber, weren't you, Mother?
Less of your levity, Blanche, and get back to bed. Goodness, it's almost morning.
Good night, Edward, and good morning.
Sweet dreams, my courageous Blanche. There'll be no more disturbances, I promise you. Jane. Jane, are you awake?
Yes, sir.
Come with me, quickly.
We're going up there, the tower?
Yes. You don't turn sick at the sight of blood, do you?
I've never been tried, but I don't think so.
Give me your hand. It won't do to risk a faint. It's warm and steady. Jane, what you see may shock and frighten and confuse you. I beg you not to seek an explanation, only to try to trust me. Can you do that?
I can do that, yes. In the tower room, bloody and unconscious on a bed, lay a man. Across from him was a door secured with heavy chain. From beyond it came a horrible sobbing and scratching, and now and then the voice of Grace Poole, but I had neither time to think nor to become frightened.
Jane, I must get Dr. Rivers. That means leaving you alone here with this gentleman. If you will sponge the blood as I do now, please.
Yes.
If he regains consciousness, don't you speak to him on any account. Is that clear, Jane?
Yes, yes.
Whatever happens, do not move from here or open that door.
No.
I'll be back as quickly as I can. There's the patient, Doctor. Jane, are you all right?
Yes, I'm all right. He's regained consciousness.
You have 20 minutes, Doctor, for dressing the wound and getting the patient out of here.
So you told me.
Wait a minute.
Now, Mason.
I'm done for, Edward.
That's nonsense. You've lost a little blood, that's all.
She sank her teeth into me like a tigress.
Stop.
It will be better for you if you don't talk and let me get to work.
She said she drained my heart's blood.
Be silent, Mason. Forget it. Jane.
Yes, sir.
Go downstairs quietly, unbolt the side passage door. You'll find Dr. Rivers' carriage there. See that the driver's ready to leave the moment we come down.
Yes, yes, sir, yes.
Can I help you, Doctor?
No. This will be painful, Mason. It can't be helped.
I told you not to come here, Mason.
I thought I could have done some good.
You thought.
Lie still, please.
So long to avoid exposure. I shall make very certain it doesn't come now. Dr. Rivers will take you to his home. You'll remain there until you're quite well, Mason.
Edward!
Yes.
Let her be taken care of.
I will.
Please let her be treated as tenderly as may be.
I do my best, and have done it, and will do it. Yeah, what to God there was an end to all this. Well, they're gone, Jane, Mason and Dr. Rivers.
Yes, and it's daylight again.
I promise I turn to you for help. I didn't know it would be so soon.
I was thankful I was here.
We could walk for a moment in the garden, Jane. It's so fresh and clean there.
Mr. Rochester, will Grace Poole live here still?
Grace Poole? Yes, Grace Poole will stay. Don't ask for explanations. Just believe me when I tell you there are good reasons for it. You're my friend, aren't you, Jane?
I like to serve you in everything that's right.
And if I asked you to do something you thought was wrong, what then? But I know the answer. Very quietly, you'd say, "Oh no, sir, that's impossible."
Would I?
Jane, imagine you are a young man, thoughtless, spoiled since childhood. Imagine yourself in a far-off land. Conceive that you there commit a capital error, one that cuts you off from all the possibility of human joys, and then suddenly, imagine that fate offers you the chance of regeneration and true happiness. Are you justified in overleaping the obstacles of mere custom? Tell me, Jane, are you justified?
But how can I answer that? Every conscience must come to its own decisions.
But if it can't come to a decision, if you're afraid that you may bring shame to what you most cherish, or destroy what you most desire to protect, Jane, don't you curse me for plaguing you like this.
No, I don't curse you.
Give me your assurance on that, your hand. Your fingers are cold. They were warmer last night, Jane. Jane, will you watch with me again another night?
Whenever I can be useful.
For instance, the night before I'm married. Will you sit with me then?
Are you going to be married, sir?
Sometime. Why not?
But what makes you think he's in the stable?
Monsieur Rochester often rides before breakfast.
Oh, what a place to be looking for him.
That's Adele. And the delectable Miss Ingram. Blanche!
Edward? Edward, is that you?
Uncle Edward!
What do you mean by running off like this so early?
Excuse me, Jane. And what do you mean by rising so early?
A correct host entertains his guests.
My dear Blanche, when will you learn? Never was I correct, and never shall be. Come along. Well, why do you stop, Blanche? Or don't you know the rest of it?
Edward, does that person wish to see you?
Person? Person. Oh! Come in, Miss Eyre.
I'm sorry, sir. I did not know you were occupied.
I'm sure Miss Ingram will excuse me for a moment.
Oh, certainly. But don't forget, Edward, you promised to show me the estate.
Oh, I shall. Don't leave. Well, Jane?
I overheard some of the guests after luncheon. They mentioned that you were leaving with them in the morning, and I wish to ask for a reference, sir.
Reference? What the deuce do you want a reference for?
To get a new place.
Oh.
You as much told me that you were going to be married.
Well?
In which case, Adele would likely go off somewhere to school.
I see. Adele must go off to school, and you must go to the devil. Is that it?
I hope not, sir.
When the time comes for you to get a new situation, I'll get one for you. Do you hear?
Very well. I may not see you again before you leave. Goodbye, Mr. Rochester.
Goodbye, Miss Eyre. Jane, is that all? Seems so dry and stingy. Why don't you do more than say goodbye? Oh, your hand. You'll shake my hand. Goodbye, Jane. There! Now, you've seen it all, Blanche. The fields, the forest, and now the garden.
Such a beautiful place, your Thornfield.
As a dungeon, it serves its purpose.
dungeon. It's a paradise, a haven.
Oh, yes.
A haven of peace and love.
Who's talking of love? Distraction is what a man needs. Distraction to keep him from peering too closely into the mysteries of his heart.
I sometimes wonder if you have a heart, Edward.
Have I ever said anything to make you believe that I have?
Edward, are you never serious?
Never more than at this moment, except perhaps when I'm eating my dinner.
Really? You can be so revoltingly coarse at times.
Can I ever be anything else?
Would I have come to Thornfield if I thought you couldn't?
Well, now we have something to consider. First, Mr. Rochester is revoltingly coarse and as ugly as sin.
Edward, I never said that.
Secondly, he's extremely careful never to talk of love or marriage. However, and this is the third point, the Ingrams are somewhat impoverished, whereas the revolting Mr. Rochester has an assured income of £8,000 a year. Now, in view of all this, what attitude shall Miss Blanche be expected to take? From what I know of the world, I'd surmise she'd ignore the coarseness, etc., until such time as Mr. Rochester is safely hooked.
How dare you?
No horseplay.
I've never been so insulted in all my life.
Blanche, I've just paid you the enormous compliment of being completely honest.
You're a bore and a cur. Leave me at once.
Well, they've gone, Jane. My guests have all gone. We're alone again.
I will be leaving too, sir.
Soon to forget me.
I'll never forget you. You know that. I see the necessity of going.
Hmm?
It's like looking on the necessity of death.
Where do you see that necessity?
In your bride.
In my bride. Bride. I have no bride.
But you will have.
Oh, yes, I will. I will.
So you think I could stay here to become nothing to you? Do you think because I'm poor and obscure and plain that I'm soulless and heartless? Well, I have as much heart and soul and fully as much as you have. And if God had gifted me with wealth and beauty, I shouldn't have made it as difficult for you to leave me, as if it is for me to leave you. There, I've spoken my heart. I've spoken my heart. Now let me go.
Jane, you strange, almost unearthly thing. Ash.
Oh, don't mock me.
I have no love for Blanche. It's you I want. Answer me, Jane, quickly. Say, Edward, I'll marry you. Say it.
Let me look at you.
Say it, Jane. Say, Edward, I'll marry you.
Edward, I'll marry you.
God forgive me.
Edward?
God forgive me.
All my doubts and all the grim shadows that hung over Thornfield Hall were shattered and gone. I loved and I was loved. Spring had come to the earth and spring had come into my heart. 2 weeks later, Edward and I were in the little church in the village, and my hand in his, as now as it would be forever. The minister had started the marriage ceremony.
Be assured that if any persons are joined together otherwise than as the word of God allows, then are they not joined by God. Therefore, Edward Rochester, and you, Jane Eyre, if either of you know any impediment why you may not lawfully be joined in matrimony, you do now confess it. Edward Rochester, wilt thou have this woman to be thy wedded wife?
Wait! I declare the existence of an impediment.
Proceed with the ceremony, Minister.
You cannot proceed. Mr. Rochester has a wife now living.
Who are you?
My name is Mason. On the 20th of October, 1820, Mr. Rochester got married to my sister at St. Mary's Church, Spanish Town, Jamaica. The record of the marriage will be found in the register of that church.
Do you swear you're speaking the truth?
I swear it. My sister is living now at Thornfield Hall. I have seen her there myself.
Parson, close up your book. There'll be no wedding today. Instead, I invite you all to my house to meet Grace Poole's patient, my wife, Bertha.
It seemed without end, that journey back to Thornfield Hall. On the way, we stopped to get Dr. Rivers. Edward insisted that he come back with us. And that is all I remember of the ride back. If words were spoken, I did not hear them. And then at length, I found myself with Grace Poole and the others, standing again in the tower room. There was a dark danking and clanking and unlocking of chains, a door opening, and the wife of Edward Rochester stood before him. Screaming, she flung herself upon him. Her clawing hands flashed around his throat, but she had no time to do him harm. Grace Poole and the doctors sprung upon her, and when they returned, the door was shut again, and the chains fastened. Only then did Edward speak.
The woman you have seen is my wife. Mad. The mad offspring of a mad family to whom the church and law bind me forever, without hope of divorce. This is what I wish to have, this young girl who stands among you now, so grave and quiet, at the mouth of hell. Look at the difference and then judge me. They've gone off, Jane. Jane, may I come in? Jane, I did not even know her. Jane, I was married at 19 in Spanish Town to a bride already courted for me. But I married her, gross, groveling, mole-eyed blockhead that I was. Jane, hear me. I suffered all the agonies of a man bound to a wife, at once intemperate and unchaste. I watched her excesses drive her at last into madness. Then I brought her back to England, to Thornfield. Jane, I did everything that God and humanity demanded. And then I fled from this place. My fixed desire was to find a woman I could love. A contrast to the fury I'd left here. And what did I find? An actress in Vienna, a milliner in Naples, a countess in Warsaw. But back in England, I rode again inside of Thornfield. Someone was walking there in the mist, a strange, elfin-like creature. Frightened my horse and then came up and gravely offered me help and her hand. And then later that evening... Jane, do you remember? Say you remember, Jane.
I remember.
You came into that room. How shy you were, and how readily yet you answered my surly questioning. And then you smiled at me. And in that moment, I knew I'd found you. Jane, can you forgive me?
I do forgive you.
And can you still love me?
I do love you with all of my heart. I can say it now, since it's for the last time.
Jane. You mean to go one way in the world and let me go another?
Oh, please.
Stay with me, Jane. We'd be hurting no one.
We should be hurting ourselves.
It's so wicked to be near me, would it?
I'm leaving, Edward. I'm leaving. Surely you know that I must.
You will not be my comforter, my rescuer. Jane, my deep love, my frantic prayer, are they nothing to you?
Bye, Edward. Goodbye, and God bless you. Keep you from harm and from wrong.
Jane! Jane! Jane.
Going nowhere. I had nowhere to go. Without references, I could find no employment. I soon intimately knew hunger and unsheltered nights. And at last, without hope or help, I turned like a beaten dog back to Lowood. Mr. Brocklehurst forgot his word, never to open its door to me again.
So you're back, Jane, penitent and humble, I suppose, pleading for mercy and prepared as ever, I dare say, to return our favors with your accustomed deceit.
There is a place for me here. I am ready to beg for it.
You would like to become a teacher, Eyre?
Yes, sir.
We need no teachers. We have need of a girl in the scullery. Do you want it or not?
I'll stay.
Get in the kitchen, then.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wait, some months ago, I had repeated inquiries as to your whereabouts, Mr. Edward Rochester. Obviously, I was unable to assist him.
I know no Edward Rochester.
I didn't ask you. It makes little difference if you do or not. In his last letter thanking me for my kindness, he said he was leaving England forever.
Jane. Jane.
His voice, night after night, I started to hear it.
Jane.
I struggled to shut my ears from it, but I could not. It was like a soul in pain, a wild, urgent cry, more than I could bear. I would see him again, speak with him again. And after that, I neither knew nor cared what happened to me. All I knew was that I must go, and go quickly. I reached this estate, but Thornfield Hall was no more. Fire had destroyed it all. I was staring at the pile of charred and blackened rubble when Mrs. Fairfax saw me. She came running from the gardener's cottage.
Oh, Jane, oh my poor, poor girl.
Mrs. Fairfax, what happened?
It was she who did it. She killed Grace Poole. She slept and set fire to Thornfield. Her laughing roused us. I ran the nursery and carried Adele to the garden. As I stood there, I heard the laugh again. She was on the roof. Mr. Edward was just coming from home. He said nothing, but turned and ran back into the flames. I saw him get to the roof and make his way towards her. She saw him too. She ran into the edge and jumped. When we reached her, she was dead.
And Edward?
As he was coming down the great staircase, fell. He was badly hurt.
Oh.
Mrs. Fairfax!
Yes, sir.
What the devil are you doing? Adele is waiting for supper.
I'm coming, sir.
Is someone with you? Who is it? Who are you?
His eyes.
He's blind.
Edward, I've come back, oh my beloved.
Jane. Jane. Her small, soft fingers. Her hair. Her little flower soft face.
And her heart, beloved, her heart.
Jane. All you can feel now is pity. I won't have your pity.
No, Edward.
You can't spend your life on the ruins of a man. You're so young, so fresh.
Oh, don't send me away, please, Edward. Don't send me away.
You think I want to let you go?
No.
Oh, my beloved.
months went by, he came to see the heavens once more, to see first the glory of the sun, and then the wild splendor of the moon, and at last the evening star. And then one day, when our firstborn was put into his arms, he could see that the boy had his own eyes as they once were, large and brilliant and black.
Thank you for joining us for Jane Eyre. We would once again like to thank all of the fine actors who I normally tell, hey, turn on your videos. You can come on video if you like, who have volunteered to read with us this evening. A special thanks to Dan Kostelek, Your Friendly Neighborhood Shakespeare. Visit him at his website, shakespeareproves.com, or on Facebook at Shakespeare Proves, Your Friendly Neighborhood Shakespeare. We've got links to all of the content of his that I could find and more in the comments of this video. If you would like some more information on us, including how to be involved in a reading like this one and be one of these faces that are somewhere around me, head to our Facebook page, Zenith Players, and send us a message, or send an email to casting@zenithplayers.com, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. We want to continue to express our support to everyone out there working to keep us all safe right now, and those continuing to protest and demonstrate. Thank you all. Join us Saturday as we return to Shakespeare with Richard II, and next Monday we will present a reading of Little Women. Thank you, and good night.